Hello again, everyone. It's Vince Vora from TradeWinds.com, and this is our update for March 6th, 2017. Let's take a quick look at today's markets. Well, we had a pullback today, and actually the near-term pullback here is fully underway, and stocks closed lower across the board today. The Dow down 51 points, and as you can see, not only did we close below the previous low here, we had follow through today. So we have this gap that is about to close here, and this could actually end up pulling back a little more. As you can see, this upward sloping 20 period moving average can easily be retested, as it right now sits right near a nice zone of support here, this previous high. So we'll see if in the next few days we can pull right back into that area and then bounce, kicking off the next leg higher. But we'll dive into this a little more in just a moment. Let me get through the rest of the charts. The S&P 500 today down almost 8 points, while the Nasdaq was down 21, and the Russell was down about 10 points. Now, bonds today pulling back about half a point, while gold was fairly flat, actually at the close, down about 30 cents or so. And crude was also flat, down about 13 cents at the close. So, as we go through this week, we could expect more of the same. Number one, this pullback is underway, and we can see a slow grind lower into this area of support. But as you know, the employment situation report happens on Friday. And as we get into that, it really will give us a good picture as to whether or not the Fed will raise rates the following week. So there's going to be a lot of eyes on that report and a lot of people waiting for it. So we could expect a very low range sort of week overall. But let's get back to this pullback. And let's talk a bit about the head and shoulders pattern that is often talked about in the technical analysis world. And this is why the head and shoulders pattern ends up being so significant most of the time. Here's a simple way to look at whether or not we have just a near-term pullback on our hands or something much more significant. So we've moved higher here. Now we're starting to pull back. And as you know, the basics of technical analysis, as long as you're making higher highs and higher lows, we're in an uptrend. But as soon as we get that shift from higher highs and higher lows to lower highs and lower lows, that's a turning point. Now let's follow this through. For us to have a lower low, we're going to have to pull back below this most recent low here, this pivot that happened on Feb 17th. So if we pull back lower than that and then bounce and put in a lower high, lower than the March 1st high, okay, then what do we have on our hands here? What does it look like? Well, if we go back, we would have a shoulder, head, and shoulder, wouldn't we? And what's the confirmation? When is a head and shoulders pattern confirmed? It is confirmed when the lowest point between the shoulders here, the lowest point gets breached. So as long as we actually do get a lower low here and a lower high at this point, once we put this pivot in, we know things have changed. But the real fun happens once this low is breached. So if this carries through, then we know we're in for a much bigger move to the downside. And that's usually why the head and shoulders pattern becomes so significant, and why we usually get an acceleration of selling once it's confirmed. Because already, in order for the head and shoulders pattern to take form, we already have that lower high and lower low situation. So we've already made the shift. Now, once we breach this low here, that's where the acceleration happens, and the next area of support is usually much further away. So then this turns into a situation where we initially thought was just a near-term pullback, but turns into a much broader sell-off. And that's what we're keeping an eye on. So as long as we come back here and bounce before we breach the Feb 17th low, then it's nothing more than a near-term pullback before a continuation of this trend higher. But if we get a new low here, followed by a lower high, the situation takes a dramatic turn here. So that's something we'll be keeping a very close eye on in the near future. Okay, hope that helps, but that's about it for now. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you on our next update.